Hello?
No.
Hey, I can hear you.
Cool.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Life is kind of crazy right now, but that's just how it goes.
Well, I wanted to ask about that. So where are you now living?
Austin, Texas.
Okay, how are things in Austin, Texas in terms of quarantine and all that kind of stuff?
We're all. I think the mayor said stay in the house. Everyone stay in their houses. But as far as infections go, there have only been two reported that I know of, so
Okay.
probably a small amount.
Well, that's good. But it's been has it been causing any kind of weird craziness? Are businesses shutting down, things like that?
I think some stores are just closed for the foreseeable future, like Walgreens and stuff like that. Not sure how the restaurants and local farmers markets and things are going to adjust. So I haven't really been out of my house or
Yeah.
out of my apartment.
Well, if you're like me, you were quarantining before it was cool. So, yeah. I mean, that's one thing I'll say is like for someone like myself, this is actually. I was thinking like I have to put myself in other people's shoes. Like imagine if because a lot of people like hate being stuck in their house. I'm not one of those
Mm-hmm.
people. But imagine if there was some kind of disease where it was like you couldn't go in your house, you weren't allowed in your house. That's how I
You
can
have to
empathize with other
you have to
people
hang out at like parties and concerts all the time.
all the time. You can only go home just to sleep, and then you get up and you get back out. That's how I can empathize with people who.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me it works out really well. But it's also very disruptive and very strange and scary.
Hmm.
Especially here in New York. I just moved to Brooklyn, by the way, like a month ago. So like kind of bad timing there, perhaps. But
Oh wow.
yeah, but it's kind of cool. I have a nice apartment, so it's pretty it's legit. It worked out.
Hmm.
Are you still working at your day job?
Yeah, working from home,
Okay. Is that
making an adjustment to how that is.
how is that? How has that been? Is it is what's difficult about that? I guess.
Um, the way it worked at my office was people walked around a lot and had a lot of conversations. You could overhear things and jump in and kind of just get a sense of what's going on, intermingle with different departments just because people are walking by. So now all that's gone. Um, so just that alone is kind of different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's tough. I think we're all. I know that at the game center, they're doing these like huge Zoom chats with like 40, 50 people in them sometimes to
Hmm.
like either teach classes or just have faculty meetings, and it's pretty weird. And I think we're all figuring out how to make this sort of work for us.
Hmm. Hmm.
How about other things? How is that affecting your? I don't know. Do you have more time for other projects now, or do you have like less time, or? And what are your other projects that you're working on? Is the Mario workshop still going on?
Yeah, the workshop concluded last December, and in general, I think I have more time to work on things. It's because less travel time, less time spent going to get food, and like less time going for walks and things.
Right.
So I can kind of feather out my work and really just balance it a lot better and just go by what I feel like doing a lot more than I could before.
Right. Well, that's
But
cool.
yeah, we're still working in the design oriented community, looking into finishing up Enlighten. I stopped programming it and working on it about 2 years ago, so now I'm just gonna put that final coat of paint just for fun.
Nice. So let's go through the timeline because a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, you started working on that wheel, which I have open here, the Do
Hmm.
wheel, which I thought was really interesting and impressive, and I hadn't seen something like this before. Maybe you want to give people a rundown of what this is. Just I don't know if this is at all something that you're still thinking about, but I thought it was a neat thing at the very least. So yeah, what's the status of the Do wheel? Tell people what it is and stuff like that. I have it on the
Yeah,
screen.
the DO wheel is a visual representation of the concepts and terms that we use to more precisely talk about games and game design. It's color coded, starts at the top center like a clock, and you kind of work your way around clockwise. Um, the topics drill down hierarchically, so you can kind of and the very fringes see what super specific topics might be, and then closer to the center, the general, all-encompassing major topics. And it helps people see just at a glance how many different things you can talk about, how some things are stacked a little bit more than others, and so on and so forth. It gives examples in each category, and it really does help focus conversation on one thing or another, because people tend to start a conversation and blend a lot of these, and that just gets really complicated really fast.
Right.
So it's kind of helpful. We put it together many years ago, and I never got around to like filling in the missing definitions, and it doesn't work on mobile, so just one of those old projects.
Sure. But I can see why, like, so I think, and I was just going through some of your old stuff and just kind of reviewing things of yours just to kind of like refresh myself and know what to like talk about. And, one of the things that you wrote on your old blog, Critical Gaming, was, it's a blog about game design and language. That's like what you sort of, your subtitle for it. And other designers have talked about this too before. And I feel like this wheel is a really good way to try to like just be able to point at what is it that we're actually talking about, right? Like, and how is that connected to other things? I also think like, probably you could have different versions of this wheel, right? Like I could imagine things arranged in slightly different ways. Like this is not necessarily like the like, written in stone exact way that things should be broken down, but like we have to make a choice at some point about how we're going to break things down, right? And so it may be a bit prescriptive, but we need to use those kinds of things in order to like be able to communicate with each other. Yeah, no, that's really cool. And have you actually used this in your, like, do you find yourself like sometimes, or have you found yourself being like, well, let's like go refer to the wheel and kind of, actually use it in its intended way?
Yeah, a lot of the people I chat with, when they're looking for specific terms or trying to clarify what they're thinking, they go to the wheel, and it helps them narrow down and specifically talk about something. It's all in my head anyway, so I can just help people out.
Sure.
But yeah, they like the colors.
The colors are great, and I like the interactivity of it. It sort of just feels good to like move around the wheel and like slide into the different subcategories and stuff. Like I could feel this. I could imagine this being. I don't know. I think that that this is really, it could be a very cool thing. But this is not something that you're focusing on now. Right now, you have your main job. I would like to ask you. I don't know how much you can talk about your job and like what you work on, or how you sort of like feel about it, or how much. How much. I was reading about for what was the game, Remnant, right? You did some monster designs and stuff like that, boss designs, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that at all? Like, what was that experience like? And like, what did you learn? Because you were for your whole life, I think, not in AAA. And then the last 2 years you went into AAA. And, I'm just curious to see like, what's that like? Like what's the experience like? What have you learned? How has it changed your perspective on anything, etc.?
Yeah. And you can pop over to designoriented.net/Richard to see some of the specific bosses I worked on.
Okay. /Richard.
Yeah. And it was an interesting experience. Lots to learn. At first, just poking my head around at different things, and learning what the proprietary systems were like. And eventually, I got to work on these. Well, multiple mini bosses, but these are 3 of them that are in the game Remnant, and had a lot of freedom to try a bunch of things, experiment, talk with people, get a sense of what it was like developing a game in AAA, how many different specialized roles there were, and how important they were. A lot of things that I had suspected from reading interviews and doing stuff like that, but really getting the firsthand experience was really helpful.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I realize now I'm sort of running this as though it's an interview, but I didn't really have interview questions planned. I kind of just wanted this to be a chat, but yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. You see yourself working in this kind of work for the long run, or do you see yourself wanting to work more on your own projects, or do you? How where would you like to? Is this eventually what you would like to do, or would you like to like kind of do like lead design on a AAA project, or how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm always doing stuff on my own anyway, and sometimes those projects require more attention, sometimes less. So it's always a balancing act. It's nice to have a paycheck, and it's nice
Yeah.
to get other benefits like insurance. So, you know, if my side projects ever get big, it's always just a question of making a call one way or another
Right.
and pursuing that. So yeah, I like tons of projects, big, small, and there's no room in AAA for super small projects. So it
Right.
just kind of depends on what the season's like, I guess.
Did you? Because you seem like, especially with these workshops and everything, and your blogs, like it seems like a natural idea for you to also think about teaching. I don't know if that's something that
Hmm.
you've been considering or interested in at all.
Yeah, I just recently started networking with the staff at UT and some
Hmm.
of their game oriented programs. Just keeping that conversation going. I like teaching, I focus on it a lot. And trying to make that work somehow in this crazy climate is a different challenge altogether, but it's
Yeah.
also something I'm looking into.
Cool. Nice. Well, all right. So, what are your projects? What are you excited about? You're working on. You're finishing Enlighten now. Do you want to tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about Enlighten?
Yeah, Enlighten's you can scroll all the way down if you want to see a screenshot of it. But Enlighten is a puzzle game
Here we go.
that where you learn how to learn. And I took a very simple, kind of common known puzzle game, and that video might actually talk to you. It may just show you clips. Yeah. So I took a puzzle game, and by playing it, there are many modes. And um, you can just play it straight like a puzzle game, but usually you're gonna get stuck because it's got escalating difficulty curve. And by engaging with the game's other features, you're supposed to help better understand what your brain's going through, and then also how learning works in general.
Hmm.
It's got some neat social features. So if you ever think you're unique or alone in a particular aspect, linking up with a friend and seeing their progress gives you a really concrete way to compare uh, your experiences with theirs and kind of debunk some assumptions that people tend to make.
Like, what
Um,
are some of those assumptions that
so
come to mind?
a lot of people think they're a lot worse than they are, or that other people are just smart, they get it automatically, and that they're always slow and behind. But if you compare the times that people put into the game, their initial curves are almost all the same.
Hmm.
But some people just feel terrible about it and
Hmm.
compare themselves with no actual comparison.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I like that social aspect of it, where you're kind of, realizing that everybody is that's a fantastically interesting point of data alone. Just that everybody's curve is pretty much is largely the same.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess the only exceptions to that probably would be if someone had specifically already built up the skill in this
Yeah.
particular puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing about like people think about like sort of like intelligence and that like really smart people are just super great at everything. It's like no,
Yeah.
there's people build skills. They have skills in certain things or they don't. And it takes
Mhm.
time to build those skills. What originally made you want to make this? Because this is such a strange project, honestly. Like I've never heard of anyone making anything like this. But
Yeah.
I'm also not like I don't know Puzzle World very well, and it may be that there's something in the world that people are talking about things like this. But this is so weird, and I'm just curious what inspired you to want to make this in the first place.
Yeah, I've always loved puzzle games, and then I get a ton of joy and excitement out of playing them and thinking about them. So whenever I talk to other people, I think somebody did a survey once, and the two least favorite genres among all gamers are puzzle games and platformers.
Hmm.
So a lot of people just don't like them, and I originally started dreaming up the game as a way to show other people why I enjoy these games so much. And a lot of the tools that I develop are based on how I think and how I approach the game and what I think makes it a lot more fun.
Hmm.
So then when I make the tools and I see people go from I don't really like this to whoa, this is really neat, they're like, oh, that's the thing in my head that you never had before, and now you can
Hmm.
see how I felt.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, well, that's a pretty legit answer. I actually should play this, especially if you're going to be finishing it and kind of putting final touches on it. Let me know when it's done. I'm sure
Yeah.
that you'll post around about it, but I should play this because maybe this is something that can make me like puzzle games more because I am one of those people who doesn't like puzzles. I'm actually surprised to hear that you say that a lot of people don't like puzzles. Because it seems to me that puzzles are very popular, that like that they sort of appear in console games of all sorts, like Zelda for many years and still is largely based around puzzle solving, and so it seems to me that puzzle solving is very it's just like everywhere. It's like ubiquitous in, especially in console game development. Even if they're, but I don't know if that's like, do you consider that like a different thing? Those kind of like, Metroidvania kind of lock and key puzzles, lock and key. Yeah, I said that right.
Yeah, the stuff you get in a lot of adventure games, kind of punctuate the experience, and they're oftentimes based around environmental understanding. So that more naturally works with exploration and the kind of things players like to do in those games anyway.
Right.
A lot of players still struggle with those, and it's kind of different when the puzzle game is more abstract and all there is puzzle after puzzle after puzzle, and people
Right.
don't. The novelty wears off really fast for people, and I think a lot of people like puzzle games until they get stuck. And if they get stuck and have a frustrating experience and it's just more being stuck of the same kind of stuff, they quit. But in adventure games, they get to do all the other stuff, the story, the exploration, the combat. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, my favorite puzzles applications I've seen before are ones where it is pretty abstract. Like, my favorite puzzle thing that I've played probably is the Professor Layton games. And it's because with each puzzle, it's like a completely different thing. It's usually pretty abstract. It's totally self-contained. I find that there's like a genre of puzzle game where, well, actually most puzzle applications are the same style of puzzle, like for example this here, you got the 5x5 thing, the same style of puzzle over and over again with many different increasing difficulty puzzles. And for some reason I don't know why. I guess I don't know if you thought much about like what's the difference between that kind of a collection of puzzles, and a collection of puzzles that are all like one shot, like this weird knot, or like this weird logic puzzle kind of thing. Because in Layton you're not really building any particular skill, I don't think so much, because each puzzle is totally different. I don't know if you've thought much about that and like what would make that appeal to somebody more, or this kind of puzzle appeal to somebody more. Because actually, the one thing I will say for this kind of puzzle is it's very skill based. So in that sense, it's actually a little bit more related to something like strategy games, which is my love. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Say some stuff about that if you want.
Yeah, Professor Layton. I love that series. I played 6 games. I think there's 8 games in the series. I'm like, 6 is enough.
Yeah.
But like you said, every puzzle is very different. There's only a handful of puzzles in the game that actually continue with the series. Like there's a night chess puzzle where you kind of go around the chessboard. And Professor Layton 2 did 3 levels of difficulty for that, but then no more.
Right.
So you're really not learning any one skill. Each puzzle is a world unto itself, oftentimes with its own rules and interface and art style. So they advertise Professor Layton as being a collection of brain teasers, and that's a pretty cool way of kind of comparing the more traditional puzzle design to a collection of way unrelated teasers and brain twisters or whatever. But yeah, it's totally true with Layton. And then the opposite style like this is much more akin to the kind of knowledge and heuristic stacking that you need to win and beat a strategy game. That's more akin to what Enlighten is doing.
Right. Yeah.
And also in Layton, you get hints on every single puzzle, right? Who doesn't?
Oh yeah.
Who doesn't want 3 levels of hints on every puzzle?
Right. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So let's see. I wanted to just talk to you about fighting games, because I feel like you're kind of a lot about fighting games. Can you tell me about your background in fighting? Did you ever play any fighting game professionally, or did I imagine that?
Yeah, Smash Bros. When the
Melee.
Yeah, Melee and to Brawl, I was going to tournaments a lot more and being a TO. So that was fun.
Nice.
I played games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Soul Calibur, like very casually. and I
Okay.
dabbled in Street Fighter. But yeah.
Nice. Okay, yeah. So I wanted to ask you, well, and also I should mention your game Barabari Ball. That game does not get talked about enough, in my opinion. That's my favorite thing that I know of yours, in terms of like all the projects I'm aware of, because I just thought that it did a few things, and we've talked about this probably before on one of the times I've had you on my show, but it did a few really brilliant things. The most brilliant of which was having a ball, like a third thing that is not the players, like. One of my issues with fighting games is I love fighting games where the characters are sort of far apart from each other, but then when they get really up close, like touching each other pretty much, it changes the nature of play, and it becomes a lot more like the card game Yomi, like a simultaneous action kind of thing. Whereas the ball creates this extra level of like game state that makes it gives it a little bit more like long arcs. It gives it a little bit more time between when players make inputs and when things happen. Another thing I like in fighting games is like projectiles, because you shoot a projectile and there is some time as the projectile is flying, and that players can like react to that, right? It's like it's a sort of set amount of time. And so, the game Arms actually comes to mind. I never actually played Arms, but when I saw the trailer to it, I was like, yes, that seems like something that fighting games should experiment with more, because it's like sort of turning basic attacks into projectiles. And anyway, I thought Barrel Ball did that really well. This is kind of a rant. I don't have a question prepared, but I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you have any thoughts about that? What do you think about fighting games?
Yeah. There's a screenshot of Bar Ball on that same page if you want to scroll to it.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Bar Ball. Kind of you click the little X on the video. On the top
Okay.
right,
Oh, there we go. Got it.
and then it's somewhere near the bottom-ish. You'll find it.
I will find it.
Fourth from the top.
Got it.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting project, exactly like you're saying. Like Street Fighter, like Smash Brothers, but wanted to develop something that was unique but inspired by those things. And Noah Sasso originally came up with the concept and the characters and hitting a ball around. And from there, a lot of the hard design work was how to create really engaging and varied scenarios around this ball, right? And the ball, what I love about it is that it speaks the same language as sports. So if you see it go into the goal, everybody gets that, like it's a point.
Right.
You see somebody running after it, everyone knows the ball is where they're trying to get to, and it focuses a lot of the action that would otherwise be very hard for people to understand. And it has a lot of sport verbs like just juking and narrowly getting it past someone and running with the ball and somebody chasing down, tackling them. Like, it's really cool. And like you said, the ball itself is both the way you score and a projectile that you can use and the thing you fight over. And it's just a lot of interesting situations come from that.
Yeah, like I have a complicated relationship with fighting games because I grew up playing them. My biggest fighting game was actually Smash Brothers 64, and I'd also love to talk to you about that a little bit, and talk to you about the general Smash Brothers games over time and what you think of them, because I have a feeling we're gonna have like exactly inverted opinions about which Smash Brothers are, but maybe not. Let's see. Marcus says put a ball in every game. But yeah, so to me, the threat in fighting games, the thing I'm concerned with is that they will be like two people just in a little box, kind of like mashing stuff around, and someone wins. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes it comes down to that. Like, if you have two evenly matched players and you both are like in Smash Brothers, let's say you both have like 150 damage or something like that, and you're like, it's been like 4 stocks, and it's the last stock now. You both have 1 stock left and 150 damage. And it's gonna kind of come down to like someone's just gonna land a hit. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's kind of like there was so much meaning built throughout that whole thing, but a lot of that meaning is just kind of wiped away because players are moving around so quickly. Stocks sort of reset things. That's a Smash Brothers particular issue. But in Street Fighter, for example, like maybe I jump over here, you jump over there, and then like it doesn't have its own like engine that's just like happening and going in the way that some other games do. So like it's very player driven. And so anyway, my concern, like the way that when I'm being my least fair, I will call fighting games just like, you know, two dudes in a box just like slap fighting each other and then someone falls over. That's not fair, but I want, like, if even that's 1% true, I want to like move in the direction away from that. And I think that something like a ball is part of what can do that. Also things like, I mean, my favorite thing about Smash Brothers too is the fact that because of the damage percentage, your position on the stage always matters. If you're standing in the middle of the stage, it always means something different than if you're standing at the edge of the stage. Because it takes less damage to kill you when you're at the edge of the stage. And that kind of stuff, where it's like everything's more structurally built in. And I felt like Smash Brothers 64 was like this, you know, lightning bolt of like innovation for fighting games. And then since then, they've kind of been like, let's just make it a little more of like a normal fighting game. That's how I've generally felt the trajectory has gone. But why don't you respond to all that weird stuff I just said?
Yeah. It's interesting. Fighting games are strategic action games, and kind of like in real life, when you get down to it, you know, action is bodies and events done through time, and because of our consciousness and kind of the way we perceive the world, there is a degree to which there's a little bit of I can't react to what you do, you can't react to what I do. So all it is how it plays out as a result. And we kind of use physics and interactions and balls to kind of make a very clear, it went into the hoop or it did not go into the hoop kind of distinction. And from there, we play ball. You can't get rid of that aspect in an action game, especially ones that are modeled after real life activities like fighting and sports and stuff. That is, I think, the part that people... or it's an inseparable part of what people like at all the levels of the game, where one person's mostly in control and the other person's responding. Both people are kind of in control and they're passing it back and forth, or so on and so forth. Like different scenarios are all dependent on that real-time reality. There are ways to mitigate it, of course. You can always attempt to put more incentive on, you know, having players back up or play to other systems in your game. But I don't think you're ever going to get rid of that unless you just don't want to make a real-time game. Right. It's interesting that you were talking about Yomi and it being a card game or turn-based.
Right. Yeah. Yomi, I love the card game Yomi that exists because it's such a good example of, you know, I think he did capture Street Fighter, something about playing Street Fighter quite well, in that there's that, you know, simultaneous rock, paper, scissors sort of thing. And but I think everyone who plays the card game Yomi sort of experiences a little bit of that, like, you know, sometimes you can just go like 5 turns and you just guess wrong, and it feels the guessing is really highlighted. The whether you're guessing in this very binary sort of way, and it's that feeling is very strong in Yomi, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I had another thought about Smash Brothers that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, and sports. So you were talking about sports and how there's that real-time thing about sports, and I agree with that. And I think that we'll always have some amount of that kind of like black box, like just some mysterious shit happened, and then, you know, like and it's and like not a lot of meaning was necessarily built, and that'll happen sometimes. And that's not really what I'm fighting against as much as, like, if you look at some sports like American football or even baseball or even soccer and things like that. I mean, part of it's because they're team games, but team game aside, think about like playing one player, you know, Madden. Like there's like people play Madden very seriously, right? And so it's like sort of a one player game, but you have all this structure. You have all these like different positions. You have all these like and someone said in chat, American football is the worst sport game ever. Sure, whatever. Pick whatever one you want. Like baseball has all these positions, right? Has all these and that positionality and that specific little diamond of bases in baseball. And so that's kind of, some of that is like sort of what I feel like is missing from a lot of fighting games, where there's just not a lot of structure. And that's one thing I love about Smash Brothers is that you have moving platforms, you have like ramps, you have like bumpers, you have all this structure. Barabari Ball, I think, also has some of that, which is really cool. And whereas Street Fighter is a box, you're in a rectangle, and so that's something that I would also like to see more, is like that structure, because that stuff is stuff that helps people to build meaning into the actions. You go up onto this ramp, and it's like, now we're on this new part of the game where I'm up on the ramp. I jumped up onto the platform, right? I jumped up on this platform, and now we're at a new point in the game, and now things have changed. Not because I'm up here, you know what I mean? Whereas there's less of that when you're just in a rectangle. What do you think of that?
Yeah, the very minimum requirements you need to create a fighting game is just some little fighter dudes and some space for them to fight in. So naturally, the box design is like minimal effort. So like in tradition, you follow a game series, they usually just do what they've done. So you're probably not going to see Street Fighter change that, and you're not going to see Samurai Showdown change that, or Marvel vs. Capcom.
Right.
So it's nice to get new IPs like Smash Brothers and ARMS, where ARMS is in a 3D arena with breakable objects that the breakable objects don't return between rounds. So you got a little bit of carryover right there. That's
nice.
interesting. And what you said, the hard part to understand about a fighting game in terms of its depth is that complexity and structure is there, but it's not. It's spelled out over time and through their actions. So imagine that if Madden or a screen like that in baseball, playing in baseball, was like a whole bunch of notes written for every player, and you've got like 10, 12 players on the field per side, you'd have about 10 to 15 notes for them to execute a strategy and go, and they try to execute it. Mm-hmm. But for a fighting game, those notes there's only one player on the field per side. Those notes are given like one at a time, but they're strung together, so you read the message more like a sequence rather than like an image. And when both people are talking at the same time, sports are very back and forth. There's always an offensive side and a defensive side. But in a fighting game, both players are talking at the same time.
Right.
So that's simultaneous communication of the same complexity being run through over time. Both you listening to your opponent and talking to them is an interesting way to understand where that structure is. And I work with a lot of people who are trying to improve in Smash, and the thing that they don't get, they just think the game is just a bunch of moves and kind of changing it up whenever they think their opponent is getting used to how they play. But it's really this much bigger conversation that extends way deeper into their own pool of techniques and assumptions and fears, and then likewise for their opponent. And then spelling it out over time is whoever can basically listen the best will be able to overcome. So even in a lot of situations that look like scrambles in fighting games, there are some players who, for whatever reason, their background, their training, their decision-making, just always come out on top. And we say that they have clutch. And it's not because they are good rock, paper, scissors players or that they're the luckiest people on earth. It's that somewhere in that deep line of all that conversating, they picked up on something or believe in something to allow them to come out on top for the people who can't hear it, kind of a thing.
Okay, yeah, I think I get that, and I guess it's hard to like demonstrate that that's a real thing, like in a concrete way. It's sort of it's a narrativized way to. I agree with you. I totally know what you're talking about, but I just also feel like, how much of that is like mythology, like sports mythology, and like that we're just like, there's a cloud and it looks like a turtle, that kind of thing. But no, I think that's valid. Yeah, so Smash Brothers, what do you think of Smash Brothers 64? What's your opinion about Smash Brothers 64 as compared to the others?
Yeah, it's my least favorite Smash. But it definitely got to the core of what Smash is on its first outing, which is really cool. Competitively, it kind of competitive play is its own beast, and it's probably one of the least balanced
I
out of
agree with that for sure.
all of them.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's interesting. It's got all the items. It's got like the modes. It's 4 players. It's got teams. It's got all the cool stuff that I love about Smash. So yeah, as long as people don't take it too seriously, you'll still see a lot of the variety and fun, uh, unpredictable action that is typical for the series.
Yeah, so like what I think about a lot is like sometimes when I talk to someone like yourself or someone like Serlin who has been involved in pro communities. I've had like very tangential pro experience. I played in a couple of Melee tournaments in my life, and but very very tangentially. I never was like I want to go pro and do this professionally ever. Actually, with any game, to be honest. But I wonder, like, so for me what's really important is like what is the experience of, I guess, just the average player, not someone who's like like a child and can barely play, and not someone who is like I've devoted my life to this. I mean, I think it's worth making considerations for both of those, but I also think someone just started printing something. I also think that the average player, like intermediates, anywhere in between those poles, really is what I really care about. And so for me, for Smash Brothers 64, I've been playing that since it came out. And I kind of didn't really ever stop. So I'm like I'm pretty darn good at it, but I never was like, I'm gonna like, drill and practice and train and anything like that. But I still am not at that point that I've seen pro players of Smash Bros. 64, and some of the stuff that happens is super degenerate. It's not. It's really not ready for that kind of treatment. But it seems to me that for the vast majority of people who ever interact with Smash Bros. 64, its major problems, which I agree are like character balance, stuff like infinite throw chain loops, and like all that like really degenerate stuff. That's just not gonna be in the game for them. Like it's do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll never know unless we tell them.
Right, exactly. And then the other thing about Smash Bros. 64 that I like so much is that, and I wonder if you think this is true, but it seems to me that Smash Bros. 64 is the most wild of all of them, in that like the physics are the most kind of, and I don't know this to be factually true, but it just seems to me that the physics are the most, they just follow their own rules. And they're like, so in some of the Smash Brothers games, I sort of get the sense that I'll smash attack somebody and there's some canned trajectory that they're gonna like launch off in, and it's very like carefully balanced and like not too strong, and and whereas Smash Brothers 64 seems like sometimes you can just like like hit someone in just the right spot and they just like die at like 25 or 30%. You can do all this like silly stuff. And it feels the most physicsy to me. I don't. Is that wrong, or what do you think?
I think the basic way that the knockback and things like that are calculated is largely the same.
Okay.
And there are techniques in all the different smashes that kind of make things look really weird. There's some DI things you can do in Melee that make you move around in a triangle instead of flying away in an arc, and stuff where you hit somebody on the ground, they just fly up into the sky for no reason, kind of a stuff.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of that is those interactions were always potentially there, but some players and some matchups will bring it out a lot more than others. And then there's this thing with Smash Brothers, the attacks are a lot more complex than what you see in Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Each attack may have multiple zones, sweet spots. Each attack may change its properties if they're like held out over time, if you hit the beginning part or the later part and stuff like that. So I think some of what you might be reacting to is, oh, these attacks are a lot more complex than I thought, and somebody's exploiting it, so it makes it look way different than what I expected. But yeah, it's definitely in there somewhere. There's some weird things people do.
Yeah, like so I envision a game that's like so Smash Bros. 64 is also a bit slower, it seems to me, than any of them. And I think you do have less DI than you have in the other games, or maybe none. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's less, and then they also have this like super weird thing they do where they reverse it when they're going to the ledge. I don't know how they do it.
Oh, weird. Well,
Like
yes.
instead of being hit out, they like bounce and flip back towards the stage.
Right. Yeah, so the later ones have yeah, it sometimes feels to me like oh, your recovery is really really good in the later games, I feel like. So to the extent that like a lot of times you can't really kill someone unless you have them hit the, is there a name for that box, the death box around the edges?
Oh yeah, the blast zone.
Yeah, you can't kill them unless you make them hit the blast zone. It feels like that to me sometimes in the newer ones, and so so there's a way in which that becomes. Did you play PlayStation All Stars?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah, so that game to me, it sort of like missed the point of the damage percentage, because it just sort of damage percentage can be treated in such a way that it becomes just a health bar, kinda.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel like the later Smash Brothers, like if you can't. If you just have to fill up the damage percentage and then smash attack them, and it's like it might as well be a health bar. And I sort of feel like the later ones are more like that, but maybe I'm wrong because I haven't played them nearly as much as I played 64. So that may be part of it. Is that there's these particularities that you have to be aware of.
Yeah. In Smash 64, I think the characters had some of the hardest times recovering, just because. And then in Melee. Some characters can recover decently well, but otherwise characters have a hard time recovering, especially with the way that the ledge was designed. And then recovery's improved overall in Brawl, and then got a little worse, a little nerfed in Smash 4, and now in Ultimate they're at an interesting place where it's totally possible to gimp people, as they say, and kill them early and set them up for these surprising early KOs. But that always takes time to discover. And with more characters, right, it's going to take even longer, I think, because there's just too many things to get used to. So people just kind of default to, I'll just do this one thing that works for all the characters by staying on the stage. And there are pros and cons to that. But yeah, a lot of it is just due to the increasing characters in the game and just the game's designed for its balance of recovery.
So how would you rank the existing Smash Brothers games, and say a little bit about each of them, if you would, just like a sentence or two, or more, if you like.
Yeah. Just rank them in chronological order. Smash Ultimate is a really interesting balance of a lot of the stuff that people liked from their favorite Smashes, like all the Smashes, basically. Smash 4 was really good at redefining this new level of Smash that basically Ultimate refined. So Smash 4 has some little bit of janky things that happened, but a lot of that was smoothed over by Ultimate, and I love Smash 4. It did DLC and a lot of other things really, really well. It made it more accessible by being available on 3DS. And, of course, decent online play. It's decent. Smash Brawl was interesting. It had, like, the whole Meta Knight balance problem, and a lot of people... that's when the schism happened between Melee and Brawl. But essentially, one thing Brawl definitely added was a... ranged play, right? Projectiles and a few new classes of characters that could play and compete in a new way. And Melee pretty much only has brawlers and rushdown characters.
Now you're talking about at the pro level, though, right?
Yeah, at a high level. In general, just all the games keep adding more and more diverse characters over time.
For the high level, or just in general?
Well, so yeah, the more balanced the game is, the more you'll see these characters. In general, the general player, it's just more and more fun with each game, just more characters that they love. And the fact that Ultimate brought back all the fighters is really great for people. Yeah, and then Melee was like, I can't believe they made this fast after Smash 64. This is great. The graphics are great. The music's great. Everything. I never could have believed that they could have turned that around that fast. Yeah, and Melee was at an interesting time where the community could grow around competitive play. So that's why it did. It just started with a lot of grassroots effort, and that's where I started. So that's where my roots are. And Smash 64 defined everything. So each of them for their own different reason.
So you don't have like a favorite or a least favorite? I guess you said 64 was your least favorite, but what's your favorite one?
I like Smash Ultimate, the newest one. It's got especially when you see at the high level and you just see characters, so many different characters, and people truly sinking into the unique play styles of these characters, making them characters people just write off as making them look so strong. That's super exciting. King
That
K.
is cool.
Rool and Day-to-Days and stuff showing up out of nowhere.
That's cool. Yeah, I generally, my least favorite one is probably Brawl. To me, that seemed like, my narrative and how I understand Smash Brothers and think about Smash Brothers is Brawl is where they really were like, we want this to kind of be a party game. And so that's when they started like, there was a lot more focus on things like the Smash Ball, which you can turn that off and whatever, but they didn't have like random tripping and things like that.
Yeah, notorious tripping.
Yeah. And so that one seemed like the most. And then I can't explain it exactly. I'd have to like really go in and look at it, but there's like a blurriness or a messiness to the to the combat in all of the Smash Brothers. I feel like going from Brawl on. Although I do think probably my second favorite of all the Smash Brothers is the latest one, Ultimate. Which is kind of, we a little bit agree, I guess, on that one being good, because I feel like that one's like they definitely stepped back a little bit from the blurry, messy party game-ish kind of feel of Brawl, and it doesn't have so the things that I hate the most about Melee are, I think it's way too fast, and I hate wave dashing, and I hate I'm really glad that they got rid of one of my favorite latest Smash Brothers changes. They got rid of that you could arbitrarily choose a direction to air dodge in. I think that's like to me, whenever you have a jump in a game, like there's a certain amount of like respecting the arc of the jump that is really crucial because that jump trajectory is like where that meaning that we were talking about like lives. And so if you just let someone at any point in the jump just teleport invincibly to any spot, it's like, I know that there's like counterplay and, if they mess it up and whatever. But it's like there's a fundamental like not respecting the jump, not respecting the arc there. And I think that now they've made it that you can only air dodge in the direction you were moving. Is that right?
They have a blend of the Melee style and the Smash 4 style. So you can just you air dodge while respecting the arc, and you recover faster. But if you do the other kind, it takes so long to recover that you kind of have to use it in a more specialized way.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's my Smash Brothers tier list. I played a lot of Melee. But in hindsight, when I go back to playing Melee now, I'm just kind of like, wow, this is the most like this. of any of them, because you're doing like these super fast wave dashes and stuff, and it's just, I don't know, and it got pretty bad in the pro scene when I was playing it. There was people just doing it was just like a wave dash, try to what's the Fox move with the down and B?
Shine.
Yeah. Just like wave dash, wave dash, shine, reflect. It was just like, it got very silly, I feel like, at a certain point.
That's fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what else are you playing? Are you playing any other things these days? New games?
I'm dabbling in Dreams for PS4.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? What is that? I haven't played it. I don't know much about it.
It's an entire game creation platform that's like a game. Everything's gamey like Mario Maker, but it's for every aspect of game creation, like making your own logic, making your own sculptures, characters, rigs, puppets, animation, sound.
Wow.
Levels.
So it's like a gamified Unity or something?
Yeah, it's just a really creative sort of trying to make every aspect, one, doable on a controller, and two, be really smooth so that people can actually make things. And another cool thing is people, at least right now, are fairly generous with sharing their stuff, so you can just grab something you think is cool and then instantly start remixing it and using it and playing around with their design.
So in general, whenever one of these like make your own like Mario Maker, I kind of had this experience. So like my day job is making levels for things and like doing game development in Unity and things like that. And so like the idea that I'm gonna go and play a game development game, which is like this you know, like, oh, you can kind of do it on a controller, like Dancing Bear kind of thing. Those, they feel like, why would I do that with my free time? Like, I want to make, if I want to make a strategy game or something, I'm just going to like hop into Unity and make it, you know? But I think what you're maybe going to say and is that the reason to do this is that they've like made it very easy to like intermix and like remix and mod each other's work, and it's more of a social thing.
Yeah, hopefully it all turns into one big shared dream experience where characters and events and things from other people's games just start hanging out in other people's worlds and games and just keep remixing it. That'd be really cool. I do find it interesting the kind of person that's attracted to putting tons of time into dreams. Somebody made SimCity, basically. It's a city simulator. Other people have made like the really crazy mathematical calculator kind of things out of stuff, and remade games like Mario Odyssey style movement. And it's just really interesting how much work it takes to do that, and the type of person who wouldn't just jump onto Unity.
Yeah,
They
that's
exist. Yeah.
oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, like, I don't know. That's a really interesting thing. But that sounds really interesting to me, especially if you can just, like, you can make, like, card games, strategy games, and you can do multiplayer. I assume it's, like, pretty good, easy to, like, have new players hop in and just play your thing with you.
Yeah.
So how does it do, like, logic and, like, scripting type, like, the stuff that rules enforcement? How does it do that?
They got their own logic system that's based on microchips, and with every microchip you can kind of zoom in and connect the wires from any input to output to a math logic operator to anything else, and make
So, like,
variables,
Construct?
make tags.
Have you seen Construct?
No.
Let me show you.
It reminds me of Microsoft or Unreal Blueprints, basically.
Shoot, I think it was Construct that has this. Anyway, a few different things have this thing where. Oh wait, is this it? Kind of. No, there's a more graphical. Anyway, it has some kind of graphical, like a graphical. I don't know. There's this thing where you can like plug in all these like logic chains to each other. Actually, a bunch of different programming apps.
Blocks.
Oh, blocks. That's what it is. Maybe it was Game Maker. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. But anyway, so it works like that kind of basically.
Yeah, the first screenshot on the top left shows some of the blocks.
Yeah, exactly. So you make these blocks and then, yeah, okay, cool. Interesting.
But yeah, this is more like Blueprints, where it's kind of two-dimensional and you can drag wires and stuff everywhere. And they provide a ton of tools, so I think you can pretty much make anything.
That's really cool. Can people sell their games that they make in Dreams or no?
Yeah. Right now, there's no way to monetize it, but I think me and Monocle said they're looking into a way where you can submit your game, and if it passes their cert, they can make it accessible for people who don't own Dreams, either on PC and or on PlayStation, and then you can monetize that.
I bet you they're going to give people like 10% for their sales. I bet you anything.
The fact that they sold Dreams for $40 instead of $60, and they worked on it for like 9 years or whatever. I don't know if they're really looking to turn a profit like that.
Okay.
Who knows?
Who made Dreams?
Media Molecule, Little Big Planet, Tearaway, Ragdoll Kung Fu, Peoples.
Oh my God, Ragdoll Kung Fu. That was another one of the times where I was like, whoa, someone did something really different in fighting games. Did you play a lot of Ragdoll Kung Fu?
Yeah, I played a lot of it.
Me too. I loved Ragdoll Kung Fu. Can I still play that? I forgot about that for like 10 years.
Yeah, Media Molecule is really good at the crafty, creative, cutesy, hands-on kind of art style. And I love Little Big Planet. I never played Little Big Racer.
I never even heard of Little Big Racer, but I also didn't play Little Big Planet. Yeah, I think I've probably had too much of an aversion from these kinds of things. Like, I think that there's, I got Mario Maker, and I messed around with that a little bit. But that's pretty limited in the kinds of games that you can make. But yeah, because I always have this feeling of like, yeah, I could like learn this and get good at this, or I could just keep like learning and getting better with Unity.
Yeah.
Because, and it's like, But at the same time, like it's a hard choice to make because there's something really social about being a part of a thing that's happening, right? Like Mario Maker was like also a moment in time, and I think you did a really good job of like being there in that moment with that workshop. I thought that was a really like smart, cool idea, and that worked out really well, right? Like you got a lot of stuff, a lot of people interacting and making stuff and getting feedback, and right, that was like a good community building thing.
Yeah, ton of fun. Still with a lot of the people that joined in the Mario Maker, and they're still talking about Mario, and we're still thinking about level design and kind of rolling forward with all that hard work and trying to keep it going. It's a really cool experience. Everyone learned something, and we're looking to kind of expand that in any way we can.
Do you think you might do something like that again, maybe with Dreams or another thing like that?
Yeah, it's totally possible. We're looking into it. Yeah, because if it takes up as much time as the Mario Maker workshop did, then I have to seriously plan around it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What about? We're coming on an hour or so. Let's maybe we'll wrap it up a little bit soon. But I want to ask you, what can we maybe see from you in the future? Like, do you have after you're done wrapping up the end of your puzzle game, Enlighten? What are you gonna do next? Do you think? Got any thoughts?
A lot of the people from the Mario Maker workshop are creative and talented, and we're all looking to kind of pull our efforts into something that isn't stuck inside of somebody else's IP. So we're kind of doing some early research and seeing how much time people have moving forward, and hopefully going to start rolling forward with other IPs and new IPs and products that we can actually sell.
Nice. So you're trying to do like a community game sort of thing where you all just like contribute where you can type of thing, or?
Yeah. We'll definitely need to do something a little more freeform than the traditional game dev studio type structure.
Right. That's cool. Good luck with that. We have a question. Is Barabari Ball ever coming to PC? I'm also curious about that.
Coming to, what does it say?
PC or any other platform.
Yeah,
honestly.
it's on Steam. It's called Sports Friends. It
is?
Yeah, we couldn't get the Johann Sebastian Joust to work with the Move controllers on a PC. So it's basically 3 indie games in one, and Barabari Ball is one of them.
Nice. Can you? Is there like online play or?
I think we tried to do it with PlayStation's and Steam's little like share controller thing. Didn't quite get it to work yet.
Gotcha.
So there's no online play.
I see. But yeah, there's bots if I recall correctly, right? Or something, so you can play against bots.
No bots.
So wait, how can I play Barabari Ball then?
You need some friends.
Oh, you play. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Well, this is actually a really perfect time for that because no one can leave their house right now. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It was at the end of the era of local multiplayer games with no online play.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad that it's not like just stuck on, on PS3 or anything. That's really cool. Yeah. Any other projects you got coming up, or any other games you're playing? Are you playing the Animal Crossing game? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I caved and bought it because everyone's so hyped about it, and we're all cooped up. So it lets me fly out to an island on somebody else's world every now and then.
So how are you playing that? Do you like it? What's your opinion? Give me some thoughts.
I played the original Animal Crossing, and then I felt like the DS one sense. But coming back,
can you say that again? You cut out a little bit there. The DS one was what?
I played the original, and the DS one was not very. I didn't like it. It was neat, but I had already maxed out Animal Crossing on N60 or on GameCube, so I felt like it was more of the same. And I haven't played it since, but I got this new one, and I'm kind of getting back in the groove, so I'm enjoying it.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I've been sort of hesitant to get into those kinds of things because I feel like they're very like addictive, and they're very like you just sort of end up compulsively playing them. Like if you really get into them, it's like they really kind of grab you and suck you in, and like then they have like these daily things. You have to go check these daily things every day, and so that's been a point of hesitation for me to get into them. But my girlfriend got it, and so now I can't get it actually because they have a thing where you basically can only have one account per Switch. I don't know if you know about that, but
I think you share an island no matter what.
yeah. So I mean, I can like troll her. That's about all I can do. But I can't really like build stuff and do stuff because there's finite resources on the island.
Don't let that stop you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. Thanks for coming by and chatting. And but is there anything you want to like plug or talk about, things that are coming up, or websites that you want people to check out, or DO things that are happening, events, things like that?
Yeah. Whether you check out the design-oriented Twitter or our Discord, we're just brainstorming a lot of interesting ways to build games together and learn about games together. So that's getting more and more serious by the day. If you're curious, just stop on by and I can always answer your questions.
Sweet. Well, thank you as always. KirbyKid, Richard Terrell. Has been a good chat. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say or ask or talk about before we wrap it up.
I'm all good. Thanks
all right,
for
cool.
having me.
Yeah. Anytime. Alrighty. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Peace. All right, folks. That was Richard Terrell. Yeah. So good conversation. I don't know if there's any post game thoughts here. I'm probably going to take a 2-minute break really quick, and then I will be back, and we will play some Yomi. How's that sound? Play some Yomi. Maybe I could do some one-player Barabari ball. Nah, they don't have one player. Sad. I want some one player. Genuinely, seriously about I agree. Put a ball in every game. Every fighting game would be improved by putting a ball in it. I don't know if you could improve like card games necessarily, or strategy games by adding a ball to them, but every other kind of, certainly fighting games should all have balls in them. Octopath Travel is 50% off. That's still too much. This game should be like 15. Come on. Look at all these ads. Ads. These ads won't even load. Ads. Half-Life Alex. You can't play that you need virtual hands to play that. So we're going to do some Yomi. Where's Yomi? He's probably down near the bottom here. Yomi. Okay, so we'll do this when we come back. Tell me about how you can improve strategy games with a ball. Like Civ, what would the ball be in Civ? I don't know. But yeah, balls are good for a couple of reasons. One, they create state, like arcs and things like that. And two, Terrell brought up a really good point actually that what a ball typically does is it signifies one person as the attacker or the person on offense and the other person having on defense, which the Riot card game explicitly did, but balls automatically do that. All right, the Earth. Good one. You got me. All right, I'll be right back.